Hey guys, it's T here. This is another video. This one's on the Null Factor Law. So, in our last video we looked at solving quadratic equations in the form x squared is equal to a number, but if your quadratic equation is not in that form, you need another way to find the solution. Now, if you get a quadratic equation and you factorize it, you can use the Null Factor Law. And the Null Factor Law states that if the product of two or more numbers is 0, at least one of those numbers has to be 0. That's kind of obvious because, let's say you times 5 by 0, what's the answer going to be? 0. Let's say you times 15 by 0, the answer is still going to be 0. If you times any two numbers together and the answer is 0, one of those numbers, or it can be multiple numbers actually, like 1 times 3 times by 0, the answer is still going to be 0. At least one of the numbers that's been multiplied has to be 0. So you can summarize that rule as if AB is equal to 0, then A must be 0, or A can be 0, or B can be 0. Or both, even. Now, if a quadratic has been factorized, it's been written as a product of factors, so a term times by another term, and using this law, because if a term times by another term equals 0, then one of those terms has to be 0. This law lets you to determine solutions because one of those factors has to be 0, the other one you can work out. So, let's try this out. Use the Null Factor Law to find solutions for 2x squared, take 8x is equal to 0. So firstly, we determine that this is not in this form, so we can't use the x squared is equal to k method of solution. So, let's try the Null Factor Law. We need to factorize this. So, what's common? What's the highest common factor on the left hand side? Well, 2x goes into both of these, so I can move the highest common factor to the outside of the brackets. What did I have to times 2x by to get 2x squared? X. What did I have to times 2x by to get negative 8x? It would be negative 4 is equal to 0. So this has been factorized now. So this is in two terms that are being multiplied together equals 0. Now we can use the Null Factor Law. So if 2x, how can I write this easier? If 2x times by x take 4 is equal to 0, you can think of this as being the a term and this as being the b term, this equals 0. A can be 0, or B can be 0, according to the Null Factor Law. So 2x, which is A, can be 0, or x take 4, which is B, can also be 0. 2x is equal to 0, the opposite of times something by 2 is divided by 2, so x is still going to be 0 in that case. But x take 4, what's the opposite of taking 4? Adding 4, so x can be positive 4. Therefore, solutions are x is equal to 0 or x is equal to 4 in this case, using the Null Factor Law. Let's try a harder one. Alright, use the Null Factor Law to find solutions for x squared plus 3x take 4. So obviously this isn't in the form x squared is equal to k. Then we need to factorize it. X squared plus 3x take 4 is equal to 0. We need to factorize the left hand side. So this looks like it would be some product rule. Need to look back. We did this at the start of the year when we first did algebra. So let's have a look at the Quadratic Trinomials. It is some product rule. If you remember back, have a look at your textbooks or your workbooks. It is the rule factorizing with sum and product rule, which states x squared plus px plus q is equal to x plus a, x plus b, where a and b are two numbers. A plus b is equal to p. A times by b is equal to q. So it's a long time ago now, but you're supposed to be trying to remember all of the material that we've gone over so that you can use it. Maths builds up, you know. So we need to work out a and b such that when they're added together they make 3, and when they're times together they make -4. So let's do it in a different color. How do I get -4 by multiplying? I can go -4 times by 1. If I add them together, -4 plus 1 is equal to -3. -4 times by 1 is equal to -4, obviously, so that doesn't work. What if I do -1 times by 4 is equal to -4, obviously. -1 plus 4 is equal to 3, so that's the option that I'm going to be able to use, -1 and 4, so that's what all my a and b's are. So factorized, this is going to be x, what did I say a was? Take 1, bracket x, and then b was +4. It's equal to 0. So I factorized that left hand side. Let me turn it back to my place in the textbook. Alright, so now I've got the factors here. A times by b is equal to 0. So if it can be a is equal to 0, x take 1 is equal to 0, or x plus 4, which is b, can be equal to 0. In that case, take 1, the opposite of taking 1 is adding 1, so x could either be +1, x plus 4 is equal to 0, or the opposite of adding 4, taking 4, x could be -4. So that's another example of using the null factor law to find solutions for a quadratic equation. Obviously you need to factorize first to get it into the product of two factors equals 0, and then make one of those factors 0, and then solve for whatever x is in those cases. What you'll notice in your book is that it gives you the question in this form already factorized, whereas in these examples I wanted to show how you later on would have to factorize it yourself using rules that we've taught you previously, like the sum and product rule. You need to factorize for yourself before using the new null factor law to find the multiple solutions. So here, I'll put a box around these solutions here so it's a bit more obvious. So solutions are, I should write that as well, answer the question. Solutions are x is equal to 1 or x is equal to -4. Alright, hopefully that helps you out, and I will see you in the next video.